in this lesson, we'll be lighting our shot using the sky. Okay, so we need to go ahead and add a sky to this scene. So we're going to add a physical sky. So if we come up here to where you see that floor button, left click and hold, and go over to physical sky, we can drop in just kind of a basic sky if you want to. And then we can look at this through our interactive render region. So if you go to render, go to interactive render region, you can kind of see what it looks like with these settings. So first of all, the lighting doesn't really look like it matches our scene, but it's pretty close. Now, one of the great things about this physical sky is that you can actually load in a preset for this. So let's go ahead and for one moment, we'll turn off the render region. So go to render, interactive render region, and let's just turn back on our background for a moment and turn off the sky so we can see it. So the lighting looks kind of yellow, but the shadows are a little bit blue tinted. So we know that there has to be some blue in the atmosphere here a little bit. So with that in mind, let's think about what kind of physical sky we could add. So if we go into our sky presets, this is one of my favorites for having a blue sky with kind of yellowish looking lighting. So if we click that one, and then we open back up our interactive render region, we'll give it a second to load up those frames, and you probably want to turn that up a little bit if you want this to give you a high quality render. But if you want it to go faster, you can grab this little arrow and turn it down, and it will make it go faster. So just totally depends on what you're going for or how fast your computer's working. Okay, so what I'm noticing is we're getting some nice blue shadows, first of all, but it doesn't look quite bright enough yet. So let's go ahead and we'll turn off our render region for a minute. And I want to show you a little bit of a trick. If we look back at our background, you'll see the shadows are going really hard to the left. So we want our zombie shadows to do that too. So I'm going to turn back on the sky, and I'm going to move over here from the perspective of the carcass, basically, looking back up at the sky. And with that sky selected, let's go into our time and location. And all we need to do is edit this a little bit. So I'm going to move this forward to about 10 o'clock. I just grabbed this and pulled that forward, about 10:20 or so. And what that's going to do is it's going to push the sun over just a little bit and make those shadows not quite so long, because I felt like they were a little bit too long before on this, but also this part was not bright enough. So bringing that to a little bit later part of the day from the default is going to make a huge difference. So now if we look at our interactive render region, you're going to notice that this part looks a little bit brighter and this shadow doesn't look quite so dark and long. So you see, instead of those ribs being totally blue, now we're kind of getting some of the shadows cast from these little points here. Now we're not seeing a shadow on the ground yet because we don't have a ground plane in place. So we've gotten pretty far with the sky at up until this point for the lighting. I think this looks really good and honestly really close to the lighting that we have in the original shot, but we need to add a ground plane to really start to figure that out and see if there's anything else we need to add besides that. And we also need something to be able to catch our shadows on our ground, so we need to place that ground here in our shot. So stick around, and in the next lesson I'll show you how to set the ground plane and also how to use a plugin that's going to capture our shadow and allow us to be able to use the shadow for color correction in Nuke when we start compositing this later. So stick around and we'll talk about all that in the next lesson.